Hi, it's John Tommy Rosas making another video on the Biona wetlands. And this one's on the 1923. This is a graphic I made, Tattn Media Graphics, on the documentation for the freshwater areas that are there, and it also shows where the Biona channel ended. Hang on, I'm getting up there. So I'm going to show, here's the wetlands. I'm going to show this graphic. I made a transparency. It's very old, and I wrote over it, but I imposed it on the Google Earth, and it's 1923. Not everything lines up, but the important things do. But you can see I've got it in a transparency atmospheric. So it's 3D, but there's some distorted lines and stuff, but you can get the main point, I think. Let me leave it like that. And let's spin this around. Moving this over. Let me take some of that. Sorry. Taking out some of that. Square this up with the let me put more angle on it so you're kind of looking down. Alright, so in the transparency, this right here is the overlay I made with the government 1923 survey and USGS map. That's what all this is. These are my writing and this is my graphic. But what I'm showing here, if you look carefully, this is the Biona Creek. In 1923 and before, it was channeled just enough to get it past this one area. And right at the Culver Electric, where they used to run the train through, and some of that's still here, they had it dump off right here. This is fresh water. This is not salt water that now goes up that way because this is all so low. And it goes, and I actually got a measurement now, it's 2 miles from the shoreline at high tide up the Biona Creek channel. So what's important about that is when they talk about restoration, in 1923 and actually before, about 1906 to 1909 and then 1920, they had various lawsuits and cases. So this got realigned and different things happened. But on this USGS map, what's important is the federal government determined that the channel should run and stop here. And this is their mark there for fresh water that comes down is let go into the freshwater wetlands that was already existing. It did not go through into the, like it does now, into the marina. Let me make the transparency go so you can see what I'm talking about. See, now it goes, and then the high and low tides come up it, right? So that's what I'm saying, is that before, see the difference right here? Right at area A, right here, you can see that creek line. And so the original Bayona Creek was here, then they channeled it, but they still dumped the fresh water here. They did not mix it or inundate this with more salt water like they want to do in alternative 1, 2, and 3. This is about fresh water. Excuse me, sorry. So anyway, what's important on that is that if it's restoration and the Army Corps and the federal government felt like it was important for these wetlands, this is their marks, to stay that way, here was the freshwater source. And we had the Centinela Creek that came through too, which is basically right here. So the water might be here, but this is actually lower, and it used to go towards Playa Vista, which is all this right here and down here. So this is very low, and all the wetland markings, this is all fresh water. And then you can also see the saltwater little channels that were here for the estuary. So really the estuary, which is a salt and freshwater mix, is in this area, way down here. This is way down here. And when you look at the transparency, let me back it off, over what's there now, right, where the salt pan is and this and that, that's pretty much how they drew it, right? Let me change the transparency again. But they only had the salt pan here and maybe here. But for this video, what's important is that you see that there was a major saltwater marsh area. It did not have the freshwater marsh up in here, not saltwater like they want to do in alternative 1. So this shows that it was existing, and that the Army Corps, in their graphic, in their map, and their design and everything to dump the water right here was for fresh water. So that's why in my graphic I'm saying 1923 USGS shows freshwater wetlands, estuary, and freshwater source, sorry, misspelled it, from Bayona Creek. This was still really actually a creek, even though it was channelized. It did not go to the ocean like I explained, and it also shows the saltwater areas, which are down here, right? This is all, undisputed saltwater area. But for them to say they're restoring up in here in area A, which is all the way to here, and pretty much straight down to here, again, look at the graphic transparency under Google Earth. Here's area A. So they want to rip all this out and then have that be saltwater intruded, and it was never like that. And what's important about this video and what I'm explaining is that it shows that this was fresh water before, but it was made purposely freshwater restored again by the freshwater restoration of the channel. So they can't say that they're restoring anything. If they're going to restore it, it should be to this alignment and this source of water, which we can get from Playa Vista's freshwater forest right here. It's right here actually, sorry. It's right here, and we can show I'm going to make a graphic on the pumping, but we can restore that freshwater source. So, what does that mean? In the EIS, we have to go for the freshwater alternative, because this proves that it needs to be back in here like it was. I'm going to try to change that transparency a little bit. Back in this area, like I'm saying, just like it shows here, you can see I've got this lined up with Google Earth the best I can. Jefferson and the creek don't line up, but this intersection is pretty much lined up dead on. So you can see that this had originally fresh water, we know historically, but also back to 1923, which really isn't, although it's, 94 years, but that's what was supposed to, continue. And I think that's what we have to hold to. And the Army Corps made this determination. So they can't get permits to tear in the 408 scheme they made with the county and the 404 with the Fish and Wildlife and the BWER here, that to change it into salt water. It's just fraud. So let me show you this part now. So I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna bring in I can't do it the same. Let me back this off. Let me throw this one on top. Okay, got that now. So what I have here is the alternative one. I'm doing the opaque on that. And you can see where they want to inundate this with salt water. But this will not be what was there before. That's my point. You can see their alternative, and then you can see what was there before existing. And this is my polygon that I showed that this was basically a freshwater area, according to their old map, which I already showed you, from 1923. So this is pretty significant, I think. And when we go back to this alternative one overlay, then you can see, let me crank this around a little bit. I'm flying this in, so a little bit bouncy. Thank you for your patience. You can see that where they're jumping, when they're saying flow here is fraud, because the salt water will be there. There's never going to be any flow that way except for the tide. This is not a freshwater flow. They say Bayona Creek flow like it's coming down, but where's the source? Yeah, it's inundated with salt water, and that's why this whole area, let me get rid of this thing. This whole area will be, this green area is all going to be in salt water, because we know the tides go up to 10 feet. And they're going to have to dig this. I did some math on that. It's quite a bit of material. I'm closer to my 6 to 9 million cubic yards of material. So that's the deal with this one. Let me get rid of this one now. And then so here's what I want to show on this one. Let me drag this over. So what I want to show here is that this material here this spray, what I want to show is a material that's probably color. I'm going to put the salt water in green. So I think the saltwater estuary definitely is in here, right, where these things are, okay? And what I'm saying is that, and there is a blend in here, you know, the salt pan goes over here, so yeah, it moved around with storms and then how much water came down the channel here, right? But what I'm saying is that this is fresh water in here, and it's going to this freshwater area, the wetlands. This is all fresh water here. Centinela Creek's right here. Water went this way, you know, it mingled and created, that's the estuary, it mingled there. But this area A part, you know, it's fresh water. This whole area it had to be predominantly fresh water, and that's why their whole scheme is not just wrong, but it's not honest with what is historically documented. And to me, that's the phony part of their wetlands restoration. When the fresh water used to come right through here, it never went like it did now, and that would be restoration. 1923 map, you can see on the graphic. Thank you, and please support in the Ballona Wetlands Ecological Reserve, BIS, CIR, the freshwater alternative to be made. They haven't done one, and to not approve or use the alternative with salt water, because that is not restoration for this area. None of this. None of this has salt pan. This is all fresh water, and we should keep it that way. So thank you very much. Bye.